If any other profession makes a mistake, they will lose money. But when an engineer makes a mistake, you will not only lose money, you will lose lives as well. So the engineering profession is a sacred one, very technical. Nobody can jump from East of Africa Garden today and becomes an engineer tomorrow. You have to go through trainings. It deals with calculations. You have to be precise and accurate before you become an engineer. That is why I have never seen an engineer that is not intelligent. Because when he or she makes a mistake, it costs a lot. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, before I read my first degree in engineering, I read OND and HND in electrical and electronics engineering. And one assignment I had as a student was to investigate the causes of fire incidences in Freetown. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, in electrical engineering, you just don't connect the house or you just don't electrify the house as you think. You first have to ask yourself, what are the equipment that will be used in this building? It is only after that that I will do a whole calculation. And in engineering, we call that calculation cable and cable selection. You just don't choose the cable size. You do your calculation, and at the end of the day, you have your cable size. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I came by then to realize that most of the houses in Freetown were built in colonial days, when it is only a fan and a small radio that they are using. And for that, you don't have to use a very big cable. The size of the cable could be small. Mr. Speaker, as technology develops, as modernization knocks our door, people tend to increase on their appliances. Some may come with air conditioner, some may come with heater, some may come with microwave, others may come with washing machine, and all of these things. And for the increment in the total wattage used in the house, there has to be a corresponding calculation of the cable size also, to ensure that the cables are capable enough to carry the load of the house. But Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I learned by then that quacks did no calculations. They just connected, and at the end of the day, the capacity of the cable is too low to carry the load in the house. Most of you may have tested using an extension and an electric iron. You will come to the conclusion that the extension will almost melt because the size of the cable is too small to carry that load. This is the essence of what we refer to as cable and cable selection. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, nobody would know this if he is not a trained and qualified engineer. They will not know this. So most times when houses burn, they will ask, would that they use candle under? Would that mean they use naked fire under? SO2. There are times that is not the case. It is an engineering blunder. It is lack of calculation. It's as a result of lack of calculations. Because we have a field where Joe can come from the provinces today and Joe begins to work as an apprentice with a quack engineer. Before 1 or 2 years, Joe becomes an engineer and Joe begins to electrify houses. Which is not a good practice, or which makes the professional engineer who knows and who does the calculation almost insignificant. But Mr. Speaker, the effect is so grave. I am happy that one of the functions of the council is, notwithstanding Section 18, a registered professional engineer shall not practice as a professional engineer or establish or operate an engineering institution in Sierra Leone unless on the authority of the practicing certificate issued by the council for that purpose. So now, if anybody attempts to practice engineering without a certificate issued by the council, it is a crime. It is a crime. It is a crime. So to me, it protects the infrastructure of our nation and it makes our engineering equipment very safe. Very safe. For you to see a civil engineer undertaking a construction of a building, that civil engineer must have done lots of calculations. Lots of calculations. They have what they call quantity survey. They calculate to know the strength of the beam. They know where the pillar positions are. It is not by guesswork. But how would you know somebody who is guessing and somebody who is trained and qualified? Is by the certificate. So by the way, this is a means to inform the public that when once you have a contract, if the engineer cannot produce a certificate issued by this council, then you have no business giving the person a job. You have no business giving the person a job. So to me, it's a blessing that our profession is secured, that our profession is protected, that no jig and jack will call him or herself an engineer without going through the academic processes of becoming an engineer. Mr. Speaker, honorable member, one thing that is very serious about engineering is that engineers in Sierra Leone are living a very poor life. I can say that with alacrity because I was an engineer, I am an engineer, and when I was employed in a multinational company, Mr. Speaker, I was being supervised by somebody with an ordinary certificate, whilst I by then hold a degree in engineering. And the person had certificate. The only difference between the person and I is that the person was a foreigner and I was a Sierra Leonean. So Sierra Leonean engineers are being subjected to, even though they are qualified by these foreign experts that do come here, even though they are qualified than them, but they are being subjected to work under them, and they receive very small salary compared to them. The guy I was working with was from Ireland. He holds a certificate degree. And the guy did not know what I knew by then in engineering. So when there are problems, he had to call me, he had to confide in me, and I could provide the solution. But he gets the fat salary whilst I was living on the crunch. And that is what our engineers are facing. You just take a look, analyze the life of young engineers. Their salaries are unregulated. I know engineers who are graduates from Kobe College that are up to now being paid 1.5 million euros a month. So this council must see to it that engineers begin to live a better life. if you graduate, with all due respect, but if you graduate the same year at Fobe College, even though in engineering, we spend 5 years in Fobe College, when you go to the honors classes, you have no alternative but to spend 5 years because you are too clever, you pay for your cleverness. You spend 5 years in the honors classes. Even though we are the only course that spends 5 years at Fobe College, when you graduate with a young lawyer, I am telling you, 5 years, the lawyer will feed you, the engineer. The lawyer will feed you, the engineer. I see most of my colleagues with whom I graduated accumulating the state of Freetown. They are paid, but very, very, very minute salaries. So I want the council to pay keen attention to that. I want the council to seek the interest of engineers, especially local engineers. I want the council to ensure that contracts, government contracts, are awarded to local engineering firms. This is the only way we can capacitate our own young engineers. This is the only way we can protect the profession. I am so happy, and to me, this is one document that this house should keenly watch and make sure that we expeditiously pass it to make the engineering field a respectable profession. I can tell you, we have engineers here that are very, very, very good. Don't underestimate those engineers who graduated from Fobe College years ago, read their masters in another country, and came back to practice. They are very good. Very, very good. But most times, we leave them to go for engineers in other countries, which to me is demeaning to the profession, which to me is synonymous to say, let us discard our engineers here. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, we also have to develop the curriculum of our tertiary institutions, more especially Fobe College. There is no institution in Sierra Leone that provides for graduates in engineering who want to read master's degree. You must travel out of this country to read your master's in engineering. So I'm sure developing a program for our engineers here would be very, very good, so that we begin to train engineers who are masters in our own country. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, there are times an engineer can be good, but because of circumstances, because of age, because of health, the mind of that engineer will deteriorate. So you begin to study when an engineer begins.
Electrical engineering. Ogali.
Williams, now you sabotage Abdul so. The willow.
Which one, man? We are mobile, right? To the maker.
Yes, sir. Sorry for the break in transmission. It was due to power cut.
Due to poor electrical engineering.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. I am happy that now an engineer can be disqualified, provided you have issues with your sound mind. Also, you are involved in criminal offenses. They can deregister you. They can remove you. They can cancel your certificate. They can withdraw your certificate. So just like the medical field, in which they can seize your license, and in the law field, in which they can penalize you from practicing, I believe the engineering field is another sacred field that should also have the power to deregister an engineer when once he or she loses his or her sound mind. Mr. Speaker, even farms that will be operating within our territory, they must go through this council before they operate. Clause 21(2) says an engineering firm, premier class, and class 1 construction company or institution engaged in engineering services, whether local or foreign, shall be verified and registered by the council before registration or renewal of certification with the ministry. There are some foreign companies who also come with quacks who don't know engineering. They come with their relatives to practice engineering. So with this council, we'll be able to monitor them, call for their certificate, do a thorough check whether they are qualified or not to practice before they practice. So to me, this is one of the laws that will do this nation good, that will do this parliament good, and that will make us the engineers very proud of our profession. So Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I look forward to the day that this bill will become a law in this house. I thank you for the opportunity.
Honorable Sunday.
Man of God.